The book is just really sharp and witty and biting and so sad. I don't know if I was ready to read this book. Hey everyone, Professor August here, and today I'm going to be talking about The Fetishist by Katherine Min. This book was published in 2024, and it was recommended to me by a friend of mine who is a bookseller in San Francisco. So when a bookseller tells you to read something, you say yes, and I promptly got a copy and read it. The publication of this book is really interesting because Katherine Min wrote it, I think, in 2014, and when she got a cancer diagnosis, she stopped working on it. It was already pretty much done, and then her daughter, Kayla Min Andrews, picked it up after her mom passed away in 2019 from cancer and worked with an editor to get it published in 2024. And the book is just really sharp and witty and biting and so sad. I don't know if I was ready to read this book, just given how close some of the topics are in this book to everything I've been going through in my personal life in the last year. Uh, I need to come back to it in a couple of years to revisit the topics and the themes and the characters. So I'm going to try to get through this video without losing myself and losing it on camera. Um, I lost my mom in August of 2024, and it's just like the way the book was published and then what the book is about. It's just too it's too soon, but it's a very good book, and I appreciate it as sort of this gift and legacy that Kayla Min Andrews was able to give to us, the readers, on her mom's behalf. Um, so I'm gonna talk about it without giving anything away, and hopefully I can get through this whole recording and then crawl into bed and pick up some terrible piece of lit to read or something. What can I say about the plot without giving the whole book away? Not much. So the book is following three major characters, Kyoko, Daniel, and Alma. The book opens with Kyoko in a rainstorm trying to stab Daniel, and Daniel has no idea that's happening because Kyoko falls and doesn't manage to do it. And so the first few pages is just, what the hell? Like, why is she trying to do this? What's going on? So you keep reading to figure it out. Um, Kyoko and her boyfriend, early on in the book, manage to kidnap Daniel. I can't tell you why, like how, what the circumstances are around the kidnapping, because that would give too much away about Daniel. But they do manage to kidnap him. And so Daniel spends a lot of the book in a basement in Kyoko's house. And the story then unfolds around the major plot of the book, which I think is Alma's relationship with Daniel. Really is about like love, trauma, and forgiveness. And I think that last part is really important because as the story unfolds, as we're learning more about each of these characters, what their lives are like when they're playing musical instruments, or whether they're just, walking in Italy or just like living their lives, you get this anxious, or you get this like anxiety that there's something afoot with all of these characters. But really what's happening is these characters are just real. They're like real people who have real problems, and they're none of them are perfect. They all make decisions based off of what they think is right at the time, and those decisions hurt the people who are around them. And so by the end of the book, there is a lot of just rapprochement, like reconnection of these characters and forgiveness that takes place, and a contention with their own lives and coming to terms with the way that they lived their lives and the decisions that they made. And so it's a story about people just living, loving, hating, and ultimately forgiving themselves and the people in their own lives. There are three main characters in this book: Daniel, Kyoko, and Alma. And then there are three other characters who appear throughout the book and kind of get the plot moving along. Emmy, who's Kyoko's mom, Cornell, who is Kyoko's boyfriend, and Ricky, who is the neighbor to Alma. So those three other characters, Emmy, uh, Cornell, and Ricky, they're not super fleshed out as people, other than in how they relate to the three main characters. So the three main characters, Kyoko, she is a young Japanese American kind of rocker punk girl. Her entire MO in this book is to I don't know, avenge her mother's death. Emmy dies by suicide, and she is convinced, Kyoko is convinced, that the reason her mom is dead is Daniel. Daniel is this, I don't know, he's kind of a pathetic, white guy who takes advantage of young Asian American women. And from like the very beginning of the book, I didn't like at the beginning of the book I didn't like him, but as the book progresses, I'm like, okay, he's not the most horrid human being. He just kind of like goes through life with a lot of white privilege and doesn't recognize how harmful his presence can be and how terrible his actions are to other people. And so as he comes to recognize that through the unfolding of the story, I don't know, I kind of started liking him. He's not like the worst guy. And the third major character is Alma, and I would kind of argue that Alma is the main character of the book. Like a lot of the story is told from like her life and what's happening to her. So she's a celloist. She is Korean American and has a long history with Daniel. Falls in love with Daniel. Falls out of love with Daniel, and her story unfolds as she realizes that she has MS and she's unable to perform as a celloist anymore. And so we got a lot of backstory of what her life was like as a younger woman when she met Daniel, what they went through as a couple. And then towards the end of the book, we see her coming to terms with a lot of the aspects of her life. And she is able to sort of have she has a nice ending. Let's put it that way. She and Daniel and Kyoko all have a tidy narrative close, which I thought was really nice. So this book is really easy to get through because it's almost told in vignettes. I mean, some of the chapters are just so short. They're like a page or 2 pages, but a lot happens in those short pages. I think the whole book was like 260 pages or something like that. I read it in 3 sittings of about an hour and a half each. And so it goes by quickly and the story unfolds very quickly. Um, that said, it's it was difficult for me not because of the writing. The writing is actually really beautiful, and there were passages that I was just enamored with. I thought the writing was so sharp and crisp, and Katherine Min was able to get so much story into such a small space. And I really admire that because there aren't these long, exasperating pieces of exposition that you have to slog through. It's not like that. It was very fast paced. The problem for me was the timing of when I read this. The way the story unfolds and the things that happen in the book and the way that the book was published is just difficult for me because of just my own personal baggage and the stuff I've been dealing with in my own life in the past few months. And so I would just say this book is fabulous and read it because it's funny and witty. And I definitely will come back to this book in a few years after I have moved beyond some of the personal trauma of the past few months. That said, there's nothing truly difficult in this book. The language is pretty simple. I wouldn't argue that it's difficult to get through the chapters. And as somebody who needs to have a distinct place to stop and put books aside just for a few hours to like wash dishes or make dinner or whatever it is, this book is really conducive to that because it goes quickly, but there are places where you can easily stop. And that's what I was able to do over 3 sittings. So I really enjoyed it. I will have to come back to this in a few years. I'm curious to see what other people think about this book. And if you've read it, let me know in the comments. If you haven't already subscribed, please do subscribe. It helps out a lot with this YouTube algorithm. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe below. Catch you in the next video.